Last class, we talked about different types of passive transport. We looked into diffusion as well as osmosis, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about facilitated diffusion. Before we get started, I just want to do a quick review over the previous types of transport. Diffusion is a type of passive transport that does not require the use of any energy. In this type of transport, our solutes are going to move with the concentration gradient from areas of higher concentration to areas of lower concentration until we reach this dynamic equilibrium, or the same amount of solutes on both sides of that cell membrane. So in this image, we would expect to see your square solutes move upwards. Our concentration gradient is going to go up since we have more solutes at the bottom than we do at the top. However, if we're looking at our circle solutes, we would expect the movement of those solutes to move downwards until we get the same amount of circle solutes on both sides of the membrane. Osmosis is also a type of diffusion, except we're looking at the diffusion or the movement of water. So we're looking at where that water is moving, into the cell or out of the cell. In our first image, you see that there is a larger percentage of water outside of the cell than inside of the cell. So again, we're going to move from areas of higher concentration to lower concentration. That water is going to move into the cell, and this is going to be known as a hypotonic solution. Think of a hippo, which is full and round, and so that cell, as water enters into it, it's going to also become full and round. However, if we look at the next image, we see that there's a higher concentration of water inside of the cell than outside of that cell. So the water is going to diffuse outside of the cell, and you're going to be left with a cell that is more shriveled. It has lost some of its water content. This is known as a hypertonic solution. Finally, we have our last solution, and you can see that there's the same amount of water concentration both inside of the cell as well as outside of the cell. Therefore, there's going to be no net movement. Now, this is at dynamic equilibrium, so there is going to be an exchange or movement of water, but none that is going to change the percentage or the concentration of how much is inside or outside. It's just a dynamic equilibrium. This is an isotonic solution. Animal cells placed in a hypotonic solution will lyse or burst. However, it is normal for a plant cell to be in a hypotonic solution since it requires a large intake of water. An animal cell in the isotonic solution will be in its normal state. However, a plant cell would be flaccid. An animal cell in a hypertonic solution would be known as shriveled. In a plant cell, this is known as plasmolyzed. This leads us to our final type of passive transport known as facilitated diffusion. This again does not require any energy since it is a type of passive transport. However, some molecules just simply cannot pass the membrane on its own due to its size. Maybe it's too large or its charge. And so it needs the help from a protein known as a transport protein. So remember our molecules that are able to diffuse across the membrane? Those are usually smaller things like oxygen or carbon dioxide. If I have a larger solute, though, we need the help of some sort of transport protein to get us across. This does not require any energy since we are still moving down or with the concentration gradient from areas of higher concentration to areas of lower concentration. Your transport proteins are going to be embedded in that cell membrane, and they help move molecules across the cell or plasma membrane. There are two types of transport proteins that you're responsible for knowing. The first one is a channel protein, and it kind of just looks like a tunnel or a channel. The second one is going to be a carrier protein. That carrier protein is going to accept the solute on one side of the cell membrane and then change its shape a little bit or configuration and then release it on the other side of the cell membrane. Again, in this type of transport, we're still going with the concentration gradient. That's why it's still going to be a passive transport. Okay, and that's it, our three types of passive transport. We talked about diffusion, osmosis, as well as facilitated diffusion. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you guys next time. Bye.